Hey guys, welcome to the definitive ranking of Triforce Heroes.
Yes.
We're looking at Triforce Heroes, and well, first of all, let me ask you. This game came out in, I believe, October of 2015.
Mm-hmm.
What's your history? Did you play it when it first came out?
Now when it came out, I think at some point down the road, someone had a copy of it, and I tried to load it up and play a level single player, and it was awful.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, I didn't touch it again. And then I think one year it was played at the marathon, the Zelda Dungeon marathon, and I happened to get included in this, but it was with people who like knew it really well.
Okay.
And were flying through it, and I didn't really know what was going on.
Okay.
And it was
just
like
told what to do.
The water level or something. So didn't really like it that time either, because I was not at the same page. And then when me and Nico played it recently, you guys have played it a little bit, but it's less, you're less like, you don't know every puzzle before it's done. So this was a very more fun and authentic experience to, I think, what you're supposed to get out of the game. Right.
Yes. I will say, and we'll talk about this as we get into it, but like I got the game, at launch or just before launch, and it was played through the whole thing single player, and quite a different experience.
My ratings are more. I tried to take that into consideration, but I mostly wanted to reflect this recent time of playing it with you and Nico, and at the marathon.
Okay.
Because it was such a positive experience.
You're going with your best experience, not necessarily the full. Okay.
That
makes sense.
There's a couple times where I'm like, I'm not gonna go as crazy on it, because if we're talking single player, a lot of the categories would just be like 1, like some would be 0. I feel like, but
yeah, zeros.
It was kind of hard to weigh that, so I kind of wanted to go more positive, because I think I would just say, like, don't even play the single player game.
Well, let's jump right into it. Let's talk about the world of this game, and right away it's one of those games. It's got the Super Mario 64 kind of style, where you're not going. There's no true overworld. You're going into the paintings, basically.
And even those levels, they do feel like, I think this is a criticism Andy Spiteri over on the Champions or the Zelda cast now.
Correction, yes. Thank you.
Had a criticism of like, these levels are like video game levels. Like sometimes it's like you're in the Deku Forest, but even that doesn't really feel like a world.
Right.
So, and I do agree with that.
There's no interconnection between them, really.
Yeah.
You literally go into a portal and then you appear in the next level.
It's very Mario-like in level 1. It's forest themed, but it's just a level, you're getting through.
It does like very thematic levels. That's what, and I guess we'll get to that a little bit later. But you don't feel immersed. This style of game, you just don't feel immersed. There is zero exploration. I wouldn't say zero, but like
it was like you want to find some treasures.
But like you can run around like Hytopia, is that what it's called? Like the little, but it's there's not much to it. I mean, the characters, there's the style that you get. You can go.
I do like that. I think there's character to the game, to the world. I like that stuff. My 2 is more of like, it serves the purpose for what it is. I think it's because it is that type of game. It's not like a Zelda game where you're exploring this world. It's meant to be, you play with your friends. Here's the level. Here's the level. Here's the level. Like these bite-sized things. Right. So I wouldn't go 1. I guess because you're comparing it to other things, but for me, it's like, it's not awful. It's just not like that engrossing either.
To me, it's more. This is very comparative. So even the weakest Zelda games all have a sense of exploration, and like I can't even think of any of the characters in this game. Like I know there are a handful, like in the overworld in Hytopia, I guess, but like nothing. Nothing is memorable to me. Granted, I haven't spent a crazy amount of time exploring, or I don't really remember exploring, actually, because it's like nowadays when I turn it on, I just, all right, let's get going. Like I don't think.
Well, we definitely did a little bit of like, there's not much to like poke around really though.
I think there's like 3 or 4 houses or something outside.
Oh, okay, yeah, we definitely didn't do that. I didn't know that was even a thing.
So yeah, I gave it a 1, and honestly, the community a 2.1 and a 2.0, like some of the lowest
Right.
scores for. I mean, the community is usually some low scores across the board for the world of this game.
Yeah.
What fared a bit better was the art style, and I had to go back and look at what I gave A Link Between Worlds, actually,
Okay.
because from a gameplay perspective, it's or not so much gameplay, but from a look of the game, it's virtually identical to A Link Between Worlds. It's clearly they used the same engine. I actually like a lot of some of the quirky things with this. Like I love some of the official artwork with like the 3 different links, and they're all over the place. I love it's part of the gameplay. It's built into the gameplay, but the thumbs up, thumbs down, all the emoticons, basically the emotes that you use to communicate. So I thought it was all right. I gave A Link Between Worlds a 3, and I don't think I could justify giving this a different label, a different number.
I don't remember what I gave A Link Between Worlds, but I would say that's a bit more. I think it's a little bit better. It's like more cohesive as like an overall aesthetic. You know, the style of the game. This has that same style, but they've got this new. I like the quirkiness though that they've added to it. There's some pros and cons though, because you also have like this is more of in the game, but you've got all that text flying across the screen and stuff, and sometimes that's really funny.
Okay.
But other times it's like, why? Every time someone takes damage,
Masis is curious about goo.
I do like that stuff. I do like that, but yeah, I don't know. I like some of the the new elements that this has, and like the outfits, the different outfits and stuff. Kind of play. I guess that's more in the gameplay too, but they all have a look to them that's really quirky that I like. But it's not my favorite. It's okay.
I will say that some of the worlds that they have, they're very distinctive looking too, and they're very colorful. So there's like the water world, the air world, sky world, the fire world, and very thematic. And we'll get to that with dungeons, I think. But like, it's and that shows with the art, I think, with the graphics, I should say. All right, let's talk about what got the lowest ranks across the board. The storyline of this game.
I'm starting to feel like I'm like way more positive on this game than everyone else, actually.
Well, some of the later categories, we got more categories to get to, but this was, I think, the 1.7 and 1.6 from the community and staff, were I think the lowest scores of anything ever.
Wow. So is this the worst category in Zelda?
The story of Triforce
The worst
Heroes.
element of Zelda, according to our staff and community.
All right, fun fact. I originally gave it a 2, and then I had to when I was finalizing the numbers, like before I printed this out, and I'm like, I adjusted it and gave it a 1, because at first I thought like it's just so, the story is just so wacky. Do you even remember? Like, I mean, it's kind of
no, because that's what I was gonna say. Was when we were playing it, there was no story to me.
Okay,
And then I looked up stuff, and I was like, oh, that's like the stuff that I looked up was like, oh, that's cute. I like, the villain and stuff. So like, but when we were playing, it's not like there's no story, but that's not like a negative. So I didn't want to say like, this is bad. It was just like, oh yeah, this is a series of levels we're playing.
Exactly.
And then when I looked up the actual story, I was like, it was all positive stuff I liked. So I was like, I can't really go 1. It serves the purpose of this multiplayer game,
It's just so like unserious. It's so playful. It feels like a Tingle storyline or something. Like this shouldn't even be a Zelda. Like it doesn't. It's clearly an offshoot storyline. It's an offshoot game.
Yeah.
It's not a mainline game. And like they just kind of took liberties, I think, when it came to the story. They're
Right.
like, let's just make this as quirky as possible.
It's just goofy, for the sake of it a little bit.
I think that's.
I can see how you could say that's the worst, like in the series. If that's because that's your metric.
I gave it a 1. I don't think it's actually like it's still. There's other games I gave 1s to that I think are comparable. That this might have been, at least there's some meat to some of the story, and there's a villain that like has character. I don't know. I didn't like it. I don't think fondly of the story of this game.
I don't either. I just some of the characters I think like the lady, like she's funny. I like.
Yes. All right, let's talk about the pacing and progression.
Okay.
And I will comment that I think it's I don't know exactly what world now. I think is it the third world or is it the fire one where you're on the mine carts? I feel like everything up to that point fairly simplistic, nothing too complicated. And then like it's like the third world, and then like it's like we're failing that over and over and over.
That's true.
And it was like a weird difficulty progression, and that kind of like threw off that. But it's like just the nature of the game because it's a level system. Like it doesn't have the same
flow as like a Zelda game.
Yeah,
that's why for me it was 3. It was good because it was like one day we'd be like, you want to play some Triforce Heroes? Okay, World 1. Let me play it, and then another day, okay, World 2. You know, we were just one at a time. It didn't feel like when I'm thinking about pacing and progression, I'm usually thinking about how the game opens up and all this stuff. And there is a little bit of like you can do some of the levels
right
in different orders. I think
they lock them behind like I think it's very similar to A Link Between Worlds, where I think you have to do World 1. I might be I'm not totally off, but I think you have to do World 1. If I can recall, I think 2 and 3 both open up at the same time, or 2, 3, and 4 or something. Or it might be 2, then 3, then 4. But then I think like 5, 6, 7 all open at the same time, kind of thing. It's not.
Yeah.
You can jump around a little bit.
But I'm not thinking of it as a traditional Zelda game. I'm just sort of thinking like level 1, hit me with level 1. You know.
Yeah.
There is some. I do agree with you with like some of the difficulty progression being wonky, but overall, for me it wasn't.
Yeah.
I didn't really think about it in comparison to the last thing because each time we played was its own almost isolated event. You know?
Right. Yeah. It does get quite a bit difficult towards the end of the game, which I think is probably a positive, but it's just so different. It's kind of hard to compare. All right, let's talk about the gameplay and the combat. This is where you and I kind of differed on this.
This was my favorite part of the game.
Really?
Was just playing it with you guys. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what the game's strength to me is, with 3-player multiplayer, probably in the same room. So a lot of caveats here. Like if I was also factoring in single player, it might bring it down to 2. Playing it, the 3 of us, and they give you, I would say 80% of the time, it's like really good 3-person puzzles that require the 3 of you to coordinate, and they give you fun items that, you know, you work together and solving all these puzzles. I think when you're playing with actually 3 people and you're toteming and doing all this stuff, even with the sometimes frustrations we had, I think it's a blast.
It's very hit or miss. I think it. So definitely, this is probably the time it's worth talking about. This game should not have existed single player. I truly feel that way. They should have just put it as a blockade. Like, you cannot play this game single player, or had a totally re-altered, maybe a smaller scope single player mode. Because playing this game single player, especially the second half of the game, the later part, is impossible. It's some of the most difficult Zelda, but not for the right reasons. But then playing multiplayer, it's like you need a perfect storm of things to make this fun. Because I think playing it, like if you just use just the game, like if you were just, I want to go play some Triforce Heroes, and you log on and you end up finding some people that you're not as familiar with, or casual friends or something. There's no built-in voice. Remember, this game is incredibly difficult to play without communication through voice.
We did it though.
We played one level. I think
it was kind of fun.
It was awesome, actually. It was more fun because Nico, you, and I were in the same room, but we agreed no talking.
And we were just using
so sometimes I'm like, over here.
And you want to just say like, no, you got to use the bomb over here. But like, you're like, I can't say
item. And then you start going, the emoticon that he's holding his head. Like, no, like the amount of frustration. That works so well in a small dose of one level. Like, I can't fathom playing the whole game like that. Especially some of the later levels, they get a lot more complex. Some of them like require like, all right, we're toteming, you shoot a bow. The middle guy has to throw, run over here, use the bow. This guy has to go over here, is the gust jar, all in with like, within seconds of each other. And the amount of coordination it takes teamwork, and with no built-in voice, it's like you need an external, either, you need to be on Discord or Skype or something, or be in the same room. and I think have the right people. Because
Right.
you can totally see if you have somebody who's not a good team player.
Well,
or something.
yeah, that I did say was like one of my first experiences too. So I can, if I can give lenience to that. Like I would definitely probably go 2 if I was factoring in all experiences.
The reason I didn't go 1 was because when it works, it works.
Yeah.
And there's some magic there.
It's a lot of puzzles are pretty clever, I think.
Different scores, but I think the same philosophy to get there.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the items and abilities. And I was torn on this one because I actually think across the board I liked all of the items. And this also factors in the different costumes you have because all the different costumes allow I can think of. Isn't there like the Boomeranger or Boomeranger? I think you get that. Or there's the one guy with the archer. You can shoot 3 arrows.
Outfit.
You shoot 3 arrows instead of 1 arrow. So it's like little upgrades to all of, and I like all the items.
You can strategize with those.
I like the armor. I like how you get it. There's some replay value there. And then but it's one of those games where you're tied to, there's no inventory. There's no like, oh, let me use this. It's like, you start a level and it's like, oh, there's a boomerang, and a bow or something.
Right, yeah.
It's like, oh, I don't want, so-and-so got I'm stuck with the boomerang kind of.
Yeah.
Like nobody wants to use the gust jar. Like nobody,
Okay, yeah, I didn't have that experience as much, but I can kind of see that bugging people for sure. We didn't talk about toteming.
That's like a main part of the gameplay.
Yeah, and the abilities, I guess, is kind of an ability.
Yeah.
Do you like the totem mechanic?
It works for the puzzles.
I think there's some really good ones. I love. There's a lot of good boss fights we'll talk about.
Yes.
With that. Maybe we can save that. But I think there's a lot of good puzzles, enemies, and boss fights that involve the toteming. It can be a little frustrating, especially if you don't have the communication. But
and even sometimes, like, I feel like I'm competent at this game, but like I sometimes lose track of. Wait, am I in the middle of the totem? Am I in the bottom? Oh, wait, we got to throw the top guy, but okay, I'm the middle guy, so I got to throw him. But you're at the bottom, so you got to move first and line us up. It's part of the communication portion.
Yeah, I kind of like that though.
Okay.
Like sometimes it's hard, but I sort of like having to. You have to think about it for a second, and you have like when you can sometimes pull some of those, combos off, those little weaves that you have to do. It feels really satisfying. There's one for bosses I want to talk about.
Okay. Well, we'll get to there, but let's talk about the dungeons of the game.
Yeah.
I
had another one where I'm like, I won't crap on this game.
What's your favorite dungeon in Triforce? like there are no dungeons. They don't exist.
That's another one where I was like, to me, this happens with some of the other ones where I just flip it, and it's levels. You know what I mean?
I probably could have given this a 2 now that I think about it, because I kind of talked about it earlier. Like the positives being each level, it has a distinct vibe to it. Like they clearly went with the elemental. Like this is a water level, this is ice.
But on top of it,
clouds.
They have unique puzzle things in it too. So it won't always just be like, it'll be like it's this type of level, but there's also this balancing doohickey you got to deal with, you know what I mean? Or these statues, it's not just like all fire based puzzles. So I like that they combined kind of both the elemental and like a unique mechanic, as well as like an item a lot of times too.
Right. Yeah. I guess it's just missing the whole like the lead up. There's no atmosphere behind it. Like why are we here?
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
But actually the levels are okay. Yeah, I probably should have put it 2, but you know what? When I hit print, it said 1, so it has a 1. There's some precedent for me changing my scores live while we record.
Yeah.
They don't know that.
No, it's not allowed this time. We're committed. Human error happens,
Yeah. I think the last 3 categories, actually, we have some positive things to say here, or at least I do.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the enemies and bosses.
Well, yeah, so there's a lot that combine the toteming, but there's a lot of really clever boss fights, particular that like take advantage of it, and one that's like really simple but very satisfying, I think, is like Moldorm.
Okay.
Because it's one where it chases after one person, and like someone else has to hit the tail. It becomes you have to totem and hit the tail while it chases one person. And after you hit it, it kind of takes a second to reset, but it starts to come after one of the two people on the totem. And so you almost get into the, remember like learning the 3-man weave in basketball? It sort of becomes that, where it's like one person run, the other two totem, you hit them, you got to throw one, then see who he chases. The other two, you got to pick them up, hit them, throw them, you know, and you sort of get in, like when you get into that rhythm, it's not even that hard. It's just like, once it finally clicks, you know, because I think we died the first time or came close to it, and then eventually like, oh no, it's this, and then once you get it, it still takes a little bit of skill, but you know, you can sort of beat it. And there's a lot of bosses like that. Some that are simpler, some that are harder, some that aren't as good. But
and there's a lot of like I call it like reimagination of A Link Between Worlds bosses. You know, being one of them, or even Argus. And there's everybody loves Prismantis. Is that the
Prismantis? Yeah.
Is that the
He's a fidget spinner.
I gave it a 3, and you gave it a 3. Not the best. When I think of the best bosses in the Zelda series, nothing from Triforce Heroes comes to mind.
Yeah. Pretty much the same.
But there's some fun ones.
There are some really fun ones.
Now this is a unique category here. The side content.
People are very negative about this one.
The community 1.8, and then the staff a 2, which is some of the lowest on here. And I was debating here, and I briefly had a 5 on here.
Wow.
Because I think this has some of the best replay value of any Zelda game.
I agree with that.
The caveat is with the right people.
Yeah.
We were playing, the 3 of us, and it's worth noting that we were playing on 3 different 3DSs. 2 of them had the game and 1 didn't.
Yes.
You know, so you were on like
download play. Yeah.
Download play, but then that meant you can't save your progress and save the levels or whatever.
It did actually. There was just like, because we hadn't beaten, I think it did save it. It was weird though. It was like because we couldn't beat. I think there was one level we didn't beat, and so it wouldn't let me pick later levels or something.
Okay.
Like on that file, it hadn't beat a earlier level.
Okay.
I think. So
but it got to a situation where we were in World 7 or 6 or something. It was like, so I picked the level, World 6, Nico picked World 6, but then you had to pick World 1.
I could only pick 1, yeah.
But then every time World 1 came, we're like, all right, let's just do, because like each level has 4 different modes. Like it was like pop all the balloons, or there was a time attack.
It makes it like a little harder.
And there were like, some of these were incredibly difficult. And I loved them. This is my cup of tea. I love them. I do realize that we failed a few times. And I could you could feel the room a little bit. There was some frustration set in, like, why are we dying in Buzz Blob Cave or something? Like,
right?
Like, oh, we have to beat this in 30 seconds. We're like, whatever it is, and like,
but that extra incentive is really cool.
Yeah, and I think if you have like, if everybody, like, I think we were all into it briefly, but then like, you know, and this is, every player has their own like limit of how much.
Well, I think to like, because I do like those. I think it was more of like, oh, I want to be playing level 7 right now. I don't want to be like, that would be more for like I wish we were done with, if we were done with the game, you know, maybe like let's go back and master these. Yeah. But I pretty much agree with your sentiment though. Like that's awesome.
It's like great at making easy levels more difficult, and just giving you a reason, more than most Zelda games actually, to want to replay. You know, a lot of games have like master mode or something, or like hero mode. This has 4 modes, in that there are 4 levels. You can go through each level 4 times.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I really do. And this kind of ties into, you kind of have to do that if you want to get all of the equipment to get all the uniforms and all the, you know, all the clothing.
Which we talked about. Those are really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say there are some games where I just thought there was even more to offer. Like everything was just like retrekking existing stuff. There's not much in terms of like, there's no optional areas in this game.
Right.
New things.
That's kind of where I went with it. Was I felt like it meets the needs of this game. There are obviously like other games where they're just able to do more things, but I gave it a 3 because it like perfectly suits it. Like it's all, there's not a lot of stuff in it that you're like, why is this here either? Yeah, it's all like, there's all that bonus stuff, and you're like, you see that it serves the purpose of like, one, challenging yourself more, but getting those extra collectibles so you can get the outfits, and it makes sense why you want to get the outfits, because then you can use them going back through these levels as you're trying to perfect them. So it all like works together really well, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
For sure. All right, let's move on to the music and sound, which is always the highest marks. Staff gave it a 3.4, which is the highest score. 2.8 by the community, which is the second highest score behind just the art style. You and I were in agreement on this one.
Yeah, I actually think I almost would score it higher because it's like it doesn't have to be as good as it is.
It's really good.
We actually talked about. I don't know. If I go back and look at what I gave Four Swords Adventures, like it's just thinking about that game as what I would expect out of the music, where it's like, here's some of these kind of familiar songs. We didn't really do much to it. We just kind of like threw it through the GameCube MIDI machine or whatever they did. You know what I mean? It's like,
right.
So I mean, that does some of them end up standing out.
And they had a lot of remakes of previous Zelda songs in there. But
this is like
this was a new soundtrack for the most part.
They use like a lot of the same instruments and stuff from A Link Between Worlds, but they wrote all these really new, unique, compelling tunes.
Yes.
And like different versions of them. Like you mentioned, we were playing on download play.
This is something I didn't know that ever existed.
My version that I was playing on download play, probably to save memory or whatever, but it was like 8-bit versions of all the songs.
Of the same song. So for those of you who don't know, if you're playing whatever Riverside, I'm playing it, Goo's on download play, it's the same song. Mine's full, or they're not orchestrated, whatever it is.
Yeah, it sounds like it though, you know.
His sounds like chiptune, like it's an NES game.
And they are playing at the same time and they blend together really well.
I remember you commented like, is something wrong with my audio or something?
But then when I was listening, I was like, this is beautiful. And then something Nico pointed out to me too is they wrote a song for when you're toteming and your position on the totem, the music changes. So like for every stage, there's like 10 versions of this track. I think whether it's like your player 2 middle totem.
Yeah.
It's something like that.
It escalates a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like a different mood.
Maybe that's supposed to help you figure out where you are on the totem.
Right, yeah.
But
you can't talk to people, but you can hear the music.
So it's like, one, they already wrote like a bunch of unique, cool songs. Like the unique songs from this game are like surprisingly a high effort. Oh, I didn't even mention Four Swords. Like the songs in that sound super low effort. The new songs in that game, they sounded so good. Like you shouldn't waste this on this game almost. You know what I mean? It should have just remixed some tracks. But so on top of being just really awesome, then like all the specific detail puts it over the top. I think I could almost talk myself up to a 4 on this one.
I probably could too, but it's one of those, with me, it's also a comparative thing.
Yeah.
So I look back to the games where I gave Ocarina a 5. I gave, I think, A Link to the Past a high end. Like some of those iconic songs. I feel like this game, and I felt this way about A Link Between Worlds too, like especially the dungeon themes. Like when I look at them in isolation, these are awesome songs. But then I think back to the soundtrack, and I can only think of 1 or 2 songs from the game. Maybe it's because you're not as engrossed in the world, and like there's not the same songs playing over and over, so they don't connect with you. Like I can't hum a lot of the music. I don't know any of the themes like that. But I think it's just really solid overall.
So whereas I feel like with a single player game, you're a lot of times you're sitting by yourself, like you said, you're engrossed in the world, you're hearing it more. So it kind of sticks in your brain more. And so I think it has like a cyclical effect where people are often more posting about the songs they remember like that. I don't think it's because they're not memorable.
Right. No, I think spot on.
Yeah.
Really. But let's look at the final analysis here. So starting with the community, a 2.3, meaning this game is just above Wand of Gamelon. The community has spoken, and they have spoken loud and clearly that this is their least favorite Zelda game amongst.
Definitively
the worst.
It's a whole 2-point difference actually between it and
Four Swords Anniversary Edition.
Yeah,
I'm surprised it's as low as it is. I would think it would be more in the early, like low 3s or something, or you know, above Four Swords Anniversary.
I think it'd be mixed in there. Yeah.
Yeah, like I like below Adventure of Link, which because I know that's like a so
that's actually more in the staff.
Where
we have that.
The staff still at the bottom of the list, but it beats out, you know, those heavy hitters of Four Swords Anniversary, Wand of Gamelon, and Adventure of Link. You know, tied with Phantom Hourglass and Legend of Zelda, but tiebreakers keep it low. Where do you have it placed? Is that accurate did the machine get it right?
Well, like if you take in like those, like I said, those specific experience, if you were to tell me like rank it as an overall product, which I guess is what we were doing, like I could see it being like a few decimals, you know, lower. So I could see like because if I was factoring in single player, I could see it above, I don't know, actually, like, well, definitely I could see like Twilight Princess being above it for sure, right? But I just feel like this symbolizes how much fun I had playing it this time around for me. So yeah, I don't know, maybe if I didn't ever have a moment like in Spirit Tracks or Age of Calamity or Four Swords Anniversary Edition where I was like, okay, I'm kind of good with this game for now. We didn't even actually fully finish it.
We got partially because of that download play. We kept playing World 1.
Yeah.
but I played some more at the marathon.
We played a lot, and I was excited to play it at the marathon. Most people signed up for 1 shift, but I signed up for 2, and I convinced Andy, who talks so much crap about it, to sign up for 2.
We both got to play with Mr. Spiteri.
And if you watch back, you'll see a lot of fun being had.
Smiles were had.
So yeah, I feel like for me, this captures pretty much the fun I had with it this time around. If I go back and again I factor in single player, it'd go down a few, but it's overall in an area that I really like, that I'm happy with. It's to me actually, I used to feel the other way, but I think actually it's my favorite of the multiplayer options.
Okay. So like
to play multiplayer,
I think I still have more fun with Four Swords Anniversary Edition, but you know, the machine here has it as my favorite of the multiplayer games. But I think that's where
it's close.
It fits for me because I if you look at my list in general, like it follows the path of I don't view this as a main Zelda game, and I feel in general I do not enjoy the spin-off games as much as the main series games. So even a weak main series single player game, I still have a better experience than the multiplayer. And it's really the single player that really drags this game down. But you know, it's one of those, you got to take it as a full package. I don't think you can just say like it's almost rare to get the perfect elements for everything to align. The right people in person.
I definitely agree. Yeah.
If you went just like that, it's probably a higher game. But overall, it's still a very enjoyable experience with the right people, and I think it fits right there. I firmly believe Spirit Tracks is my least favorite Zelda game amongst the single player games, and I think I would still rather play that than Traverse.
That's true. Yeah.
So
overall, though, I think it's pretty solid.
So we're coming to the end of the definitive ranking series.
It's been a long road.
So we've got a few more games to go, and next month, this is a monthly series.
Yeah, you remember last month?
What did
we talk about?
At the Oracle of Asia.
Oh my gosh!
Was that? I don't remember.
It feels like it.
So next year on the definitive ranking, we're going to be covering the Legend of. Well, no, there's no Legend of Zelda on this one. We're Hyrule Warriors. I guess we're lumping in Hyrule Warriors Legends and Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition. We're going to rank the Definitive Edition.
I'm going to play the Switch version.
Yes. We're not doing 3 different rankings of this one, that's for sure. So, as usual, there is a poll in the description below. Have your voice be heard, even if you've only played the original Wii U version.
Yeah, whatever version's fine. Yeah.
Are there people that have only played the 3DS version of this game?
Probably, yeah.
That's a weird one, but you know, let us know your thoughts. I know Hyrule Warriors, much like Triforce Heroes, is not a traditional Zelda game, so use your judgment when you think about what you thought about the, side content or dungeons or pacing or progression of Hyrule Warriors, because there's a lot of different ways to play that game, and there's so many different modes. So we'll be covering that next month, and so we'll see you then. Tune in next time.
Month, year,
this decade. We'll finish this decade.
Oh
right?
yeah,
for
sure.
We got Breath of the Wild. I think we're gonna save that one. Well, the Breath of the Wild 2 will probably be out by the time we do.
Yes, we'll do back to back.
Yeah, and then we got to redo Twilight Princess, right? That was the first one.
Oh yeah, I want to reevaluate it.
Bonus. Yeah, it'll be 4 years, I think, by the time we. Who was president when we started this? Was this?
Whoa, I don't know.
Was this 2018 when we started this?
I think so.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Or at least
many administrations.
Yeah.